Welcome to week 5 on the What Do They Know podcast. This week, Nick finally loses it on the Jets. The guys give their thoughts on the games between the Ravens and the Bengals, discuss improvements of Bo Nix and the Broncos, and the potential landing spots for Davante Adams. But hey, what do they know?
What do they know? We are about to find out what is going on, everybody. Welcome back to the What Do They Know podcast. Nick and Jeff with you once again, as always, here to break down everything that happened from the week. You had a nice, peaceful Sunday.
I did. Obviously, with tomorrow being Monday and Monday Night Football, obviously, I wish we had a better opponent than the Chiefs, but hey, it is what it is. Primetime TV, I can't complain.
There's just something about watching football on Sunday when either your team already won or you don't have to worry about it because it's like a bye week, or in your case, like they don't play till tomorrow.
Right, you can enjoy the rest of the games freely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Or you could be like me and have your team lose to start out the day, especially early, and just be bitter.
Just
so I'm gonna
downer. Yep.
I'm gonna kick us off.
Okay.
And I try really hard not to make this a Jets podcast or a Saints podcast because there's 30 other teams. Nobody wants to hear about our teams, but I can't help it. Okay. I am so done with Robert Saleh. Fire him tomorrow. Okay. I am just so done with this team, this sloppy, undisciplined, penalty-loving team. It is infuriating to me. Do you know they are in the exact situation as they were last year with Zach Wilson?
How so?
Record-wise, they were 2-3.
Mm-hmm.
My dad sent me something today. I'm going to find it real quick because it's just depressing.
Yeah, I mean, what year is this of the Robert Saleh?
This is year 4.
Year 4. I feel like he talks a big game, but like I feel like it's been the same constant problems year in, year out, even without Aaron Rodgers. Penalties have been a big issue, I feel like, throughout the years. But yeah, go ahead. Let's see what you got.
This year and last year started 2-3, scored the exact same amount of points.
Same amount of points. Wow. Okay.
So I'm just done. Okay, everybody said it was the offense. Everybody said it was Zach Wilson. It's not Zach Wilson.
Right.
It wasn't Zach Wilson, just like it wasn't Sam Darnold, just like it wasn't Geno Smith. It's the inability to find the right coach.
Right.
And I know you didn't watch the game, but they played atrociously in the first half. Okay, sloppy. Rodgers threw 2 picks. They had penalties out the wazoo, like always. And he got interviewed as he was going into the tunnel, and he said, "We're fine. We just need to keep doing what we're doing."
Who said this?
Robert Saleh. We're fine. We just need to keep doing what we're doing and we'll be fine. My dad, I was literally typing the same thing that my dad texted me. He said, "We're going to be fine," like with a million question marks. Like, seriously, dude? Like, that's your response?
Right.
It's infuriating to me. And, coaching decisions, 4th and 1, when do you go for it, whether you don't? I think it was the second quarter. They were down 17-0. They went for it on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1. With a run play, couldn't get it. 2 run plays in a row. They decided to go for it, obviously didn't get it. And they didn't kick the field goal, which ultimately it was the difference in the game because they were down by 6 on the last drive of the game. They could have been down by 3. They were already in field goal range.
Right. So
Rodgers wouldn't have had to force the throw that he did and ultimately throw an interception. So like those decisions, I mean, yeah, that's a small one. And people can say, well, you should go out on 4th and 1. You shouldn't, blah, blah, blah. It's not just the only decision. It's Saleh's inability to just coach this team the way that they need.
Right.
I'm fed up. I'm fed up. Like I don't have any other adjectives. Like I'm just done. I'm done with him.
Right. I mean, you have to imagine or wonder how much of the locker room, I guess, he kind of lost last year with that whole downturn and never, like, I guess, sticking with Zach Wilson for maybe a little bit much longer than he should have. And then going into this year, now is he even in control of the team? Well, now with Aaron Rodgers there.
No, of course not.
Like, and that becomes an issue. Like, Aaron Rodgers needs someone that's, I guess, going to keep him in line. But I mean, that's kind of what ran him out of Green Bay in the first place. Him and his takeover personality, I suppose. All the bad things you kind of heard are kind of, I guess, coming to light here in New York, becoming a reality of some sort. I mean, Robert Saleh. I mean, I've always tried to lean on you with the opinion, but obviously last year one of my overreactions was both of our teams should have fired their head coaches with both Dennis Allen and Robert Saleh. And I mean, we kind of glossed over it. We kind of gave Robert Saleh a wash here. So did his owner. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't know if he was ever the man for the job.
He needs to go. They're just not prepared.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not. And I'm so sick of every single game, the storyline being, well, the defense played well enough to win.
Right.
The defense played great. If you take away the pick six that Rodgers had, they gave up 13 points?
Mm-hmm.
I think. I don't even know.
So like
16 points
16,
maybe. I think it was 23
24.
20. Yeah.
23-17. Yep.
So I mean, once again, the defense played absolutely fantastic, especially in the second half. They made Sam Darnold look like old Sam Darnold again. And it just wasn't. Once again, it just wasn't good enough.
Right, the good old Sam Darnold revenge game,
dude. I'm just done with him.
I mean, Robert Saleh could be one of those guys who's just a better coordinator than he's going to be a head coach. It's just one of those things where you live by it. And I mean, we talk about Cliff Kingsbury all the time. I feel like he's kind of accepted that role, and he doesn't want to be much else probably. Robert Saleh, maybe if you want to keep your career in the NFL, maybe it's time to regulate yourself to being a defensive coordinator and maybe work your way that way. But as a head coach, I mean, New York doesn't have a lot of patience, but they've experimented with a lot of patience with him, being this is year 4. So it's obviously not paying dividends.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
Look at that.
I got that out of my system.
Yeah. It was a good little rant. It shows off our personalities around here.
Oh my God,
absolutely.
Dude. Don't even get me started. It's a good thing this is a clean show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Let's just say that.
Oh, goodness.
All right, moving on.
Uh-huh.
So my second top story is the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay.
They were part of the game of the day against the Cincinnati Bengals, and
right.
I feel like it was a huge game for a wide variety of different reasons, right? I think obviously a division game. Anytime it's a division game, it's a big game, but the manner in which they won, not number one, Lamar Jackson playing the way he did.
Mm-hmm.
So his stat line, 26 of 42, 348 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and 55 rushing yards. Monster stat line for him.
Right.
And then the Bengals on 2 separate occasions were up by 10 points.
Mm-hmm.
So they were up 24-14 in the third quarter, and then they were up 38-28 with 9 minutes left in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So for Baltimore to come back like the way that they did, I think is just huge for them going forward. And I mean, you think about it, they're 3-2.
You're right.
Really very easily by a toenail could be 4-1.
Mm-hmm.
And we could be talking about them as, number 1 in our power ranking.
Yeah.
So I just think that this was a massive win for them going forward. They have a big one next week against Washington, which is going to be, I'm really looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
But I think that this game could really catapult the team, the offense, Lamar. I mean, you name it. I just felt like it was a really impressive win.
Yeah. I mean, they lost their first 2 games, didn't they? They started off 0-2. Yep.
Yeah.
And won 3 in a row now. I mean, personally, I never really, panicked about the Ravens. They have the pedigree, and with Harbaugh there as their head coach, it's the same thing with the Steelers with Tomlin. Like, even if they have a hiccup here and there, it's they're going to get it right.
Yeah.
So with the Ravens, I'm not surprised that they're in this role. Obviously, with the Bengals on the other end, that's rougher for them because they're not playing bad football offensively, and it's their defense that are just costing them games. But the Ravens, obviously, they took advantage. You got to make stops if you're the Bengals, and they just did not. The Ravens overall, I feel like are like you said, flying high.
Yeah.
Next week is definitely a test for both of those teams, both the Commanders and the Ravens. That's going to be a magical game, I feel like. But yeah, to me, it's just no surprise for them that the Ravens are in the position that they are now, behind only the Steelers in that division at 4-1. But to me, the Ravens are in prime position to take that division overall because they already got the Chiefs out of the way.
Agreed.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. What do you got?
So for me, I got the Broncos.
Okay.
They're also sneakily 1-3 in a row. I feel
3
like
in a row. Yeah.
Yep.
Tampa Bay, the Jets, and now Vegas.
The Raiders. Yep. So I mean, this is. People doubted Sean Payton after that 0-2 start. Like, oh, he was just a one-trick pony with Drew Brees. It was more Drew Brees than Sean Payton. But no, Sean Payton knows his stuff. And during my time on TikTok, you go over these NFL clips.
Yeah.
And Sean Payton's very elaborate, long play calls, even if they don't really lead to anything, like maybe it's a fake or something you audible off of. And Cam Newton dissected one of his play calls, and he's like, that's a long play to just call out of it,
right.
type of thing. But I feel like there's just such a little nuance in Sean Payton's mind that just clicks offensively. And to me, Bo Nix is I mean, he's a rookie. He's not that old. He's not a veteran or anything, but growing up in this system, I feel like it's only going to benefit him more for his career, I feel like. And Bo Nix with 2 passing touchdowns today, he finally is starting to understand.
And I believe he had a rushing touchdown too.
Yeah, he's starting to see the field a lot better than obviously his first career game. I mean, I feel like a lot of QBs will. But I feel like Bo Nix has definitely paid off for getting that confidence from Sean Payton. And the biggest thing for me is Javonte Williams. Getting that run game going. He had 13 carries only, but 61 yards. 5 receptions for 50 yards. He's starting to get involved in that passing game. I feel like they kind of rely on Jaleel McLaughlin there as well. But for me, getting that run game going, and then for me, I always say lower the pressure on rookie QBs. But Bo Nix is definitely turning the corner here for Denver.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of remind me so far of let me know this is a biased take, but the 2009 Jets, with Sanchez as their rookie quarterback that just had
back in the day.
He did just enough, and they had a dominant defense.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is what the Broncos are right now.
Right.
I mean, with a rookie quarterback, I feel like they're never gonna win the game because of their offense, but they just can't lose the game because of their offense. Like, I watched them obviously last week against the Jets, and it was rainy, it was miserable, conditions were horrible.
Right.
But that defense is great. The Broncos defense is legit.
Yeah.
And so I think that is going to be what carries them or catapults them through the remainder of the season. And as long as Bo Nix continues to progress and make those small improvements, which, to your point, we've already seen since they were 0-2, I think that they have a chance to make some noise in this division. I like the Chargers, I think, so far, and obviously the Chiefs a little bit better, but Broncos Chiefs next week. Or excuse me, Broncos Chargers next week.
Broncos Chargers.
So that'll be a good one.
Yep. I mean, Vance Joseph is definitely underrated, I feel like, as a coordinator.
100%, yeah.
Ever since that Miami game last year, they definitely turned on the Jets defensively, and Vance Joseph has definitely carried that momentum from that they had last year to this year. So props to him. My second one is the 49ers. So going the opposite direction of momentum here.
Yep.
The 49ers, honestly, I don't know what's going on there. I feel like Christian McCaffrey is probably maybe a lot more valuable than we probably could have imagined.
Yeah.
Obviously, who is it? Mason, Jordan Mason.
Yeah. Yep. He's been good.
He's been decent.
Yeah.
He's been serviceable for sure. Obviously, he had that big week 1, but after that, I feel like that was like Christian McCaffrey all year last year.
Yeah.
Like his week 1 was Christian McCaffrey all year. So,
and Mason did have a really costly fumble today.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the 49ers, we both anticipated kind of a step back for them.
Yep.
So, to say I'm surprised, not really, but to say that they lost to the Cardinals at home. Obviously, they've been kind of indestructible there at home.
Yeah.
The 49ers have. So, honestly, it just makes me question if Purdy's the guy at this point.
I think today, and you know me, like we root for the Cardinals any chance we get. But I think today was kind of just a weird game. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it was either the first or second quarter that the Niners had to go the rest of the game without their kicker. So that play, and you laugh about that, but that did play a big role in the game. Like there was one time I was telling you, they went for it on like 4th and 20 because they were, I think, on the 30, 35 yard line. They couldn't punt, but 4th and 20.
Right.
Whereas you would clearly be kicking a field goal in that situation. So I think it was a weird game, which to the Cardinals' credit, they took advantage of.
Right.
But I heard somebody say it tonight when we were watching the pregame show for Sunday Night Football is we're used to the Niners not doing the things they need to do, the little things to win the game.
Right.
And they just didn't do that today.
Yeah. I mean, they obviously have the pieces still. Ayuk's still there. He had a big game. Juwan Jennings is there.
Debo was like non-existent.
Yeah, and Debo's who knows where he's at. But yeah, I mean, it just makes me wonder how important of a piece that McCaffrey has kind of like churned the engine on that thing, because Purdy, I feel like he's always been above average, but he's the sum of the parts around him type of 100%. Thing. So it's not like he's going to...
We said that last year.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like that's rearing its head even more so this year now. They're 2-3. Technically, I would say they're behind the Cardinals now in the division. They're in third.
Technically based on tiebreaker.
On tiebreaker.
Go Cardinals.
And go Cardinals. With the Seahawks being at 3-2, so
which neither of us think is going to last.
Right. Yeah, I feel like they kind of took advantage of the schedule that they...
Niners Seahawks on Thursday night.
This week?
Yep. So that either way, that works out great for the Cardinals.
Yep. So to me, the sneaky good team is the Cardinals here. Obviously, we both wanted to put them in the playoffs. I don't know if you did.
I did not.
You did not? Yeah, I had a thing with that. But yeah, I mean, 49ers, any 49er fans out there, just watch out. Temper expectations if I were you, to be honest with you. I'm not seeing a Super Bowl run from this team, to be honest.
Yeah. Agreed. Before we go, is that your last top story?
Yeah.
So before we go into top stories, I want to pick your brain a little bit, and I know you probably didn't see this, but I got into not an argument, but a Facebook conversation with one of my buddies about the end of the Bills-Texans game.
Okay.
So it was under a minute to go. The Texans had just punted, pinned the Bills on literally the 2-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think it was actually less than 30 seconds now that I'm saying that. And so less than 30 seconds, you're on your own 2. It's a tie game. The Texans have all of their timeouts. Okay. So they had all 3 timeouts. The Bills threw it on every single play, and all 3 were incomplete, and they punted.
Right.
So my buddy on Facebook just trashed him, just completely trashed him, and said that there was no reason. What were they thinking?
Right.
And my argument was, it didn't make a difference because they had the timeouts. They would have used them anyway. So the time would be exactly the same. You could also argue that they would have less time throwing the ball than they would running the ball, because throwing takes more time.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, from a strategic standpoint, I feel like that's a really interesting conversation, because I don't have a problem at all with the Bills throwing like they did, because either way, the Texans are stopping the clock.
Right.
And ultimately, the Texans got it back with literally 7 seconds left. They ran one quick 3-yard play, called a timeout with 2 seconds left, and kicked a 59-yard field goal.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of aspects that you have to think about, passing the ball. You have to, especially at your own 2-yard line or whatever it is, you have to worry about the safety. Obviously, you're dropped back, and that safety is going to probably cost you the game, because that's 2 points to the Texans and the ball, basically. That's something you have to worry about. Obviously, our run play doesn't guarantee you anything, but maybe a QB sneak does, just to get you out of that position, and then you can open up the playbook a little bit more. For me, the problem would be passing at your own 2. If you're dropping back into your own end zone, that's almost ill-advised to me, especially in that situation. Just put yourself in a position where you can drop back without worrying about a sack basically costing you a game, especially a blindside sack.
Right.
You just don't know.
Or something as little as a hold in the end zone.
Yeah, a hold or a bad snap or something like
grounding,
that.
Anything, yeah.
Yep. And with Josh Allen's day, I mean, he was 9 for
30? I think he was, yeah.
Personally, I would not risk at that point. You're just playing the odds, and obviously, Josh Allen is Josh Allen. He's not going to go 9 for 30. Well, he just did. He's 9 for 27. At that point, you just say he's having a bad day. These wide receivers aren't getting separation. Run the ball, play it safe, and then live for overtime or whatever you want to do. Kick the ball, punt the ball, and then do what you want. But to me, probably costing the Houston Texans their timeouts would probably be a little bit more advantageous for you in that position. For me, it'd be like a 60-40, because I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to go down the field or at least get a first down and waste their timeouts that way, and still giving yourself a position to win the game. But personally, if you're in up against your own end zone, I'd probably play it a little bit safer, to be honest with you.
All right.
Yep.
All right, moving on to overreactions. I'll let you go first.
Perfect. All right. So my first one is honestly, one of my favorite players and very underrated. Xavier McKinney will win Defensive Player of the Year. He has 5 interceptions in his first 5 games, one each one. So he has 5 consecutive games with an interception.
Yeah.
So to me, obviously, we always talk about the sack leaders, especially when it comes to Defensive Player of the Year. Linebackers are always heralded.
He's in Green Bay, right?
He's in Green Bay.
Yeah.
He
came over from the Giants.
He was probably the biggest signing, I feel like, during the offseason. I love that signing for Green Bay. And honestly, he might have been the stabilizer for when Jordan Love went out and Malik Willis kind of came in. And that defense definitely played a big role in that whole overcoming of Jordan Love injury. So Xavier McKinney, I just feel like he's very underrated and not heralded enough. And that's why, personally, I don't know if it's an overreaction because I haven't looked at the sack leaders so far.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Yeah. I feel like, and I haven't either, but I feel like naturally my gut is to say overreaction just because that's who wins Defensive Player of the Year. It's the guy on the line who gets a million sacks, like T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett.
Yep.
Somebody like that.
Yeah, and I feel like last year, who was it from the Cowboys who got all those pick sixes and whatnot?
Deron Bland.
Yeah,
he set an NFL record.
Yeah, and he didn't win
with pick sixes in the season.
Yeah, and he didn't win Defensive Player of the Year. So for me, yes, this was an overreaction, but I definitely had to mention it because I feel like he's definitely been one of those underrated, unheralded guys that throughout this year and kept Green Bay in the position where they are.
Yep.
But moving on from that, I feel like the Bills should overpay for a wide receiver in the trade market.
Okay.
They should.
So time out for a second because that's a really interesting topic. And I was talking to my brother-in-law, who's obviously a diehard Bills fan today.
Right.
And he said that he thought today was a really good example of why the Bills should be trading for Davante Adams.
Mm-hmm.
My thought process and what I told him is like, you just got rid of that type of player,
right,
with Stephon Diggs.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you want to do it again? Like, why would you everybody was saying, obviously prior to the last 2 games, like Josh Allen was playing so much more free. He was spreading the ball.
Mm-hmm.
If you bring in Davante Adams, like, where the ball is expected to go.
Right.
It's going to go to Davante Adams.
Mm-hmm.
And if he doesn't get it, if you've watched the receiver show and you've paid attention to what he's been doing the last 2 weeks, he's going to cause a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally get why that would be an easy thing to say, like, oh, Davante Adams would be amazing with the Bills, but would it?
Right.
I don't know.
It kind of sets the standards of what you've already gone through as a Bills family. Obviously, Stephon Diggs. Personally, I probably hold Davante Adams a little bit higher than Stephon Diggs, and I'm not sure, but problem is the drama. Obviously, Davante Adams requested a trade. That's not favorable in terms of character. But I mean, the Bills at this point, I don't know how long you can survive with an offense like this unless you're willing to make James Cook your centerpiece instead of Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing today was that Josh Allen had a horrible completion percentage, but it was not because of offensive line play.
Mm-hmm.
He had the time to throw the ball.
Right.
It was because of receivers just not getting open. And obviously Khalil Shakir didn't even play today because he got injured last week against the Ravens, which apparently he is a bigger weapon than we realized because it completely changed the dynamic of the Bills on offense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Khalil Shakir, we kind of scoffed at that being their number 1 receiver coming into the season. Like, how can you survive? But when he was the number 1 receiver, they were 3-1 basically.
Yep.
So that's not
3-0. Yeah,
nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I haven't seen Secure enough to see how he runs his routes or what he's doing differently if he has underrated speed or something. If he's just cutting some sort of corners that a lot more tighter than other receivers do. But more like a Julian Edelman type of receiver. But it's fascinating to see the Bills offense kind of lose their number 1 receiver and then just look absolutely, I guess, a little bit more abysmal than they should have because their receivers just aren't creating separation that they need. But personally, I think it is an overreaction to me, to be honest with you. But at this point, I wouldn't even be sold to try anything. Like, you got Amari Cooper over there in Cleveland. Obviously, it goes beyond Adams. Maybe call about Christian Kirk or something over there in Jacksonville. Anyone from Miami. See what see throw some feelers out there type of thing. But it's definitely one of those things where I just do not trust this wide receiver corps with Josh Allen right now.
Yeah, and to your point, like I think that there are guys that the Bills could go out and get that aren't as, I guess, needy, for lack of a better term,
right,
than Davante Adams. Like I love the idea of Amari Cooper if the Browns continue to plummet. I love that idea for them.
Right.
Christian Kirk is not a bad idea. There's a couple other names that have been floated around that I can't think of off the top of my head, but I think that the Bills and the Chiefs are going to be the two teams that are most aggressive in trading for a difference maker wide receiver.
Right. Yeah, definitely don't make the big splash. Make more of the underrated.
Make the smart move, not the big one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was going to be, side note, back on my soapbox here for a minute, that was going to be something that I talked about during my rant with the Jets. I just got so worked up that I forgot, is that Davante Adams is not going to be the thing that makes a difference on this team. It's just not. I mean, you look at Garrett Wilson. He had 13 catches, over 100 yards, and a touchdown today.
He had 22 targets.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
He had a crap load of targets.
Uh-huh.
They have the weapons. It's not for lack of weapons. So like everybody, it makes the most sense. He wants to play with Rodgers. He's his boy, like blah, blah, blah. Like I get all that. It sounds great. It sounds easy. I will stand firm and please prove me wrong that he is not going to be the piece that completely makes the Jets look different. He's just not.
So let's backtrack a little bit here. Is it the offensive line? Is it the play calling? Or
so the offensive line, what they did is they went out and they got guys that are proven pass protectors. Okay,
right.
So their pass protection is great. Other than obviously a few select plays, which everybody has breakdowns, but they cannot run block for their lives. Like that's why Breece Hall has been invisible the last 2 or 3 weeks.
That's my fantasy bowl.
because their offensive line gets no push, and it's a specific type of lineman to be a good run blocker versus a good pass blocker.
Right.
Where, I mean, if you watch the Jets, Rodgers has time. The pass protection is fine. It's the run game that is just horrible.
And it's so interesting because growing up, I always heard running the ball is like an offensive lineman's dream because it means you have to go out there and you pummel someone, you run someone over, and that's the fun part of the game. Where pass protection, you kind of have to take a back foot and a back step and try to just create a pocket type of thing. But running game, that's surprising to me. That's surprising that they just are not fluctuating there.
I mean, Rodgers threw it 54 times today.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
That's not good.
He's 42.
Yeah.
What are we doing? 54 attempts, and he had I think 220 yards.
Yeah.
So just not efficient, even remotely. And again, put aside the X's and O's. It's not an X's and O's thing. I think it's really a discipline, fundamental type thing that they just are not good at. They don't do the easy things well.
Right.
And you're never going to be a successful team until you can do that. All right,
gotcha.
I'm off my soapbox.
Okay, we'll go back to it during my passion. I'll tell you that right now.
I'm just so fed up with this team, and it's so frustrating because I told you during our breakdowns, I refuse to give them expectations. I refuse to be excited, and I just can't help it. I just hate them so much, but I love them so much at the same time.
Oh Lord,
they're infuriating.
Fantastic.
Thank God for the Yankees.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Your overreactions, I think.
Where are we at?
I think your overreactions.
All right. So my first overreaction, and this is me, and it's fine. I don't even care. I'm totally doing a flip-flop at this point. Okay. The Giants are not as bad as I thought.
The G-Men.
The Giants are actually a decent team. Okay. So they went on the road to Seattle, which it's literally a cross-country trip as far as you could possibly go. Right. With no Malik Neighbors and no Devin Singletary. So your number one wide receiver, you're starting running back. Yeah. And they won. Yeah. Right. So it puts them at 2-3. They really had the Dallas game within grasp last week. They won. They lost by 5 points. If they had just gotten one touchdown drive instead of the 5 or 6 field goals that they ended up with, they would have won that game against Dallas. And I mean, I gave Joe Shane crap for doing the Brian Burns trade. the defense has been very good.
Yeah.
The defense has been very good. They were great today. They were great against Dallas. So, I mean, credit where credit is due.
Mm-hmm.
I just think, as I watched Thursday night and then we watched a lot of this game today against Seattle, it was very apparent to me that Daniel Jones is not as bad as people are saying.
Right.
And the Giants as a whole are, Brian Daboll is doing a good job.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a flip flop for both of us. I mean, we were.
I said that he was going to be 0. They were going to be 0-4, and Jones was going to be benched going into today.
Mm-hmm.
That was my, I think, week 1 overreaction.
Yeah, it's starting to look like he's going to be the starter next year too.
Yeah,
Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
If he keeps this up, I mean, the Giants are kind of like an enigma right now. I feel like I can't really gauge my expectations for that team right now because I don't know what version of Daniel Jones is going to show up every week. It's going to be the pick six monster, or is it going to be the game manager that feeds Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton pretty efficiently? Yeah. Obviously, Slayton had a big game today.
Yeah, he did.
Robinson had a touchdown.
Yep. I don't even know who they brought in at running back. I couldn't tell you.
And neither could I, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But
must have been good enough.
Yep. I mean, if the game plan was centered around Daniel Jones and him throwing the ball, it worked. Yep. Surprisingly, it worked. And this goes back to when I said New York media is really impatient with things, and Daniel Jones has kind of been like the poster boy for that right now. And Robert Saleh has been the exact opposite, as we were talking about. But Daniel Jones, honestly, mentally, I wonder if he's just like over the whole thing. I wonder if he's just getting over it. He's like, you know what, whatever.
I mean, you have to be a special kind of person.
Yeah.
To be able to be a star athlete in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously star doesn't necessarily mean amazing, but like he's a quarterback of the New York Giants.
Right.
He's the center point of New York media.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to ignore the noise, play through, look, halfway decent. Right. I mean, kudos to him.
Right. Like, I'm starting to become a fan of Daniel Jones, to be honest with you. If he keeps this up,
if he keeps feeding Malik Neighbors, I'm a huge fan. Okay. Huge fan.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the Giants are definitely not as bad. I wouldn't say it's an overreaction. It just depends what version of Daniel Jones shows up.
Yep.
Overall.
Agreed.
Your second.
All right. So this is a little bit of a copycat from yours last week. Very straightforward. The Bengals are done. So last week you eliminated the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, the Browns were done.
Now I'm eliminating the Cincinnati Bengals. So they are 1-4. They lost a heartbreaker today. We talked on the flip side about what a big win it was for Baltimore. Mm-hmm. What a horrible, horrible loss it was for the Bengals. Mm-hmm. And they still have 5 division games. That was their first division game.
Yeah.
And I mean, Joe Burrow said it on his press conference, which it's not late breaking news. He's not saying anything profound, but he said, we're not a championship team. We're far from it right now.
Yeah.
And he said, I thought it was interesting. He was like, we hope to be better towards the end of the season, but I mean, they already have 4 losses. You make it to the playoffs with anywhere from 6 to 7 losses. So you don't have any room for error going forward.
Yeah. 8's your max.
Right.
8 is definitely your max.
And I don't think that'll get it done.
No, not in the AFC, I feel like. Honestly, I don't know. I'm split because I want to say it's overreaction because they've been playing well offensively. Joe Burrow has been better as the season gone on, and the Bengals. We talked about they were notoriously slow starters, and they pick it up as the season goes on. But that defense, man, that defense is just not doing.
There was no defense to be seen in that game.
Yeah, ever since the Commanders game, that defense is just not it. They're just not giving their offense any respite to kind of, I guess, even be able to afford to punt. To allow, like we talked earlier, Baltimore to come back from 10 points twice. That's rough, and that affects the rest of your football team. So in that aspect, I personally, I think they're done, but it's a tough pill to swallow for me because the Bengals are Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are a special connection. And it's just sad to see.
Burrow had 5 TDs today.
Yeah, 5 TDs and 1 interception to basically end the game.
That's about as good as you can play in a loss.
Yeah. So it's that's what I'm saying. It's a tough pill to swallow when you have your quarterback and your number 1 wide receiver playing so well together. To have your defense be the downfall, it's infuriating to me.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right. So we will jump into our power rankings.
Okay.
What do you got?
Here, I'll give you this to you. I got the Vikings the number one. I finally took the Chiefs off there.
Boy.
That's because they're 5-0. Obviously, the Chiefs play tomorrow, and we'll see where they're at. But yeah, the Vikings finally clutched up for me, and they're at the number one spot. But I got the Chiefs at number 2.
Yeah. I'm sold on the Vikings.
You're sold.
Yeah.
All in. Okay. Yep. Shout out Jake.
Yep.
Number 3, I got the Commanders. They're just looking powerful right now, efficient. Jaden Daniels is looking like he's going to run away with that offensive rookie of the year award. Even though Caleb Williams is kind of being sneaky there in Chicago. I think Chicago put up 36 points today. That's pretty good. But Jaden Daniels, I feel like, is far and away the best rookie so far this year. Number 4, I got the Lions. They got a bye week this year, but I got the Lions there. I think they're still probably the poster child right now in the NFC, even with the Commanders a little bit higher. But the Lions are definitely the team to beat there in the NFC. And then number 5, I had a rough time with this one, but I got the Texans. I'm not completely sold on the Texans because they haven't won dominantly in any of their games. Everything is a squeak by, and I just don't know how far they can get along with that.
Okay,
personally, yep.
So I forgot about the Lions.
You forgot about the Lions.
I forgot about the Lions. So number 1, I got the Vikings. Number 2, I have Kansas City. Number 3, I have Washington. Number 4, I put Houston.
Okay.
I was very impressed today. I honestly went in thinking that the Bills were going to run away with that game.
Really?
I did. Now I know the Bills were injured and, offensive struggles, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But I was still very impressed the way that Houston jumped out to the lead, the big lead, and they very easily could have crumbled. Mm-hmm. I mean, in fairness, CJ Stroud tried to give that game away through a pick, had a horrible fumble with like 2 minutes left in the game on their own 20-yard line when all they were trying to do was run out the clock. Mm-hmm. But they keep finding ways to win.
Right.
4-1 against, they knocked off a team who more than likely is going to be a division champ in the Bills. So I have them number 4. And then number 5, I have the Ravens.
Okay.
I just think that the Ravens are going to this started the increase on the Ravens. I just think that their stock is going to go up from here.
Yeah, I was debating putting the Ravens over the Texans, but I did want to touch on the Texans about that. I mean, like I kind of knocked on them, even though they made it in my list. But I feel like the Texans are 4-1. They're looking like the runaway division winner in the AFC South. So I'm just not completely sold on them yet, and we'll see.
And I think that's fair.
Yeah,
I kind of feel like, and this might be a stupid, ignorant comment, but like I feel like Stroud has too many different weapons.
Yeah, he might not even know what to do. We'll see how they fare now because Nico Collins, I feel like, had a hamstring injury, and I'm not sure how long that's going to keep him out, if it keeps him out at all. But I mean, Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell kind of becoming more prominent there. You wonder if that'll help CJ Stroud just limit the reads a little bit more.
Well, and one thing, don't sleep on how much of an impact Joe Mixon has.
Yeah,
because he's been out since really half of the game on week 2. Mm-hmm. If you remember week 1, he had a phenomenal game. The Texans offense looked electric, and they just haven't quite been that same offense since he went out. Like I'll give them credit. They tried their darndest to run the ball today. Cam Akers, some dude named Agumbawale, who I've never heard of. I mean, they were trying to run the ball, and they just weren't doing it. So I think that when Mixon comes back, and assuming he comes back healthy, I think that could be the move for them that really catapults their offense back to what we expect.
Perfect. Awesome.
All right. We will jump into our fantasy bolo.
Well, you want to go in the...
No, you can go. You can go.
Okay.
Just get it over with.
We'll get this over with now. So right now, I just wrote Breece Hall because of what we've seen the past 2 games. 19 attempts for 27 yards in the past 2 games combined.
Yep.
That is unacceptable. That if you're an offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, or if you want to say Aaron Rodgers is the true offensive coordinator there, that is not... I don't care how bad you are at running the ball. You got to at least attempt more than 19 times with your star running back.
And he hasn't even really been an impact in the pass game either.
Yeah, I think it was like 9 catches over the last 2 games for 28 yards.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't even eclipsed 60 yards over the past 2 games. Like really?
Yeah.
Really? It's about evaluating who your stars and who your playmakers are. And obviously they try to force feed Garrett Wilson, I feel like, a lot today.
Yeah, they did.
To kind of get him going. Obviously Garrett Wilson has kind of started off a little bit slowly, but to the effect where you're ignoring your star running back, that's not the way to go.
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. Number one, we already talked about the offensive line and their inability to run block. But I think it's also a combination of actually what my fantasy bolo is, teams with dual threat running backs, tandem running backs.
Committees.
Yeah, running back by committee.
Yeah.
I think that the rookie that they drafted in the 4th round, Braylon Allen, he's from Wisconsin, youngest player in the league. He's 20 years old. He's 240 pounds. Ooh. So he's a massive, massive man.
Yeah.
And when he comes in the game, to his credit, he gets 4 or 5. It's because he just trucks over people. I've been very, very surprised at the amount that he is playing over Breece Hall.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a big part of why Hall's production is down, because Allen's in the game for probably a third of it, and then the other 2/3, he just, Breece Hall can't produce.
Yeah.
So I think that, yes, they have to focus on Breece, but I mean, at the same time, you also can't consistently get 1, 2, 2.5 yards a carry and expect to do anything on offense. So it's tough.
I wonder if it's more of them realizing that they cannot run block, so they put in the bigger back in there to kind of chunk away, truck the defenders a little bit more than Breece Hall, who's, I guess, a little bit more of a finesse out in the open space type of a playmaker. Yeah. But I mean, Breece Hall, even if you're going to regulate him kind of like as a third down back type of guy who's just going to be there to pass block or run a flat, run a wheel route or something, you got to scheme up your plays, because he's one of your better playmakers. I know, like you said, Braylon Allen can get you 4 or 5 yards in the run game, but at the same time, Breece Hall is kind of proven himself already, especially even before his ACL injury, and then especially afterwards last year. Yep. That he can be the dynamic playmaker that this team can rely on. So I'm just weary about where that play calling is.
I'm worried about the whole freaking team. So I'm right there with you.
As a fantasy owner of Breece Hall, I am weary about Breece Hall.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep,
so kind of as I talked about, my thing this week is, and I was burned by it, actually in a couple different ways, is if you're a fantasy owner with a starting running back who is getting, what do they call it in the league, vultured in the show, the league, vultured by their backup running back.
Yep.
It's something that you really have to be aware of. So I'll just throw out some combinations here.
That's great.
Zach Moss with Chase Brown.
Your favorite boy.
I hate you, Chase Brown.
I hate you, Chase Brown.
Breece Hall with Braylon Allen, who we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Etienne with Tank Bigsby.
Bigsby, yep.
And DeAndre Swift with your boy, Roscoe Johnson. So those are just 4 combinations that I could think off the top of my head pretty quickly.
Uh-huh.
Tank Bigsby scored today. Chase Brown scored today. Roscoe Johnson scored today.
Mm-hmm.
Breece and Braylon Allen were both terrible. So it doesn't really matter.
Right.
But like those other 3, Chase Brown took a touchdown away from Zach Moss at the goal line. Roscoe Johnson, same thing. Tank Bigsby, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really something that, everybody laughs about getting vultured, or the backup quarterback or backup running back, coming in and at the 1. But it's something like I benched Travis Etienne today because Bigsby has had enough of a sample size for me personally to just I'm not messing with that.
Yeah.
And guess what? Zach Moss is getting benched next week because of Chase Brown. So thankfully DeAndre Swift, the last 2 weeks, really, he's had great games.
Yeah.
And even though he did get the one touchdown taken away from him with Johnson, he was able to score also.
He could have had greater games.
He could have had a better game and a bigger fantasy impact. And that's what it's all about, right? Maximizing the guys you have on your roster. And if you have a running back that you have in your lineup that only gets 2/3 of the carries or 2/3 of the goal line opportunities, then you're just not maximizing the 9 or 10 guys you have on your fantasy roster.
Right. See, the most infuriating part about it all to me is you don't know who's going to get the goal line carries, because Zach Moss and Chase Brown have been splitting goal line carries, and you don't know.
And same with DeAndre Swift and Roscoe Johnson.
Yep, they both had touchdowns within the
1 yard.
Yeah, both 1 yard. Yep. And then Zach Moss and Chase Brown last week both had touchdowns within the 5 yards. That to me is inferior. If you're going to vulture someone, vulture all the way. So I know not to put that player in. Like, I know he's not going to get TDs. If he's going to get a TD, it's going to be 20 plus yards. And if they're near the goal line, I already know what's going to happen.
Right. So, and I mean, it's one thing, you see it all the time, and everybody gets so mad when, your starting running back breaks a 80-yard touchdown or 80-yard run and gets tackled at like the 4.
Yep.
And then he needs a breather. And so the other guy comes in and scores. Like, okay, it is what it is. But like none of the guys that we're talking about, like that's not the situation. Like it was, everybody was healthy. Nobody needed a breather, and they decided to bring in the backup to score the touchdown.
So out of nowhere.
No reason. Who is Chase Brown? Where did he come from?
I don't know.
Anybody who's a Bengals fan, please message me and tell me where the freak this dude came from, because it's like 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and I'm done with him.
I talked about him on when you went to Tennessee. I was like, this is the running back by committee you need to look at. Someone's going to get a stranglehold on this running back battle right here.
Well, it's been Chase Brown.
It's been Chase Brown.
Yeah.
He had more carries than Zach Moss did today. He had as many receptions as Zach Moss had today. Obviously, Zach Moss had, I think, 20-something yards more than receiving. But, I mean, Chase Brown got the receiving touchdown, 4 yards out. So it's such a funny topic to me because it's not really affecting me at this point, besides Breece Hall. But, I mean, no one in that running game is thriving right now, so it doesn't matter to me.
It's affecting me.
Yeah, okay. That's why it makes it so funny.
I know.
that's why. But hey.
Side note, I just feel like I cannot make the right decision in any of my leagues.
I felt the same way last year.
I can do nothing right.
Yeah.
Nothing. I had Kirk Cousins on my bench this week, 35 points. I had Darnell Mooney on my bench this week, 33 points. Mm-hmm. The only thing I did do, thankfully, is bench the Cleveland Browns defense in all 4 of my leagues, which has been an epic disappointment.
Yeah. You were running them like number 1 defense.
I know. I took them in all my leagues high because I thought that they were going to have a great year. And I mean, it's partly because I think they just been put in really terrible situations with how bad the Browns are. But this is just one of those years for me where I feel like I have no pulse on what my team is going to do. And it's not fun.
Yeah, it's rough. It's definitely a helpless feeling.
Yep. All right. So we will wrap up with our picks. So just a summary. I went 1-1 last week. I had the Packers over the Rams as my lock. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember what my upset was. Oh, the Colts over the Jags. Jags. In fairness, I didn't know that Anthony Richardson was going to be out. I didn't know that...
Joe Flacco didn't have a bad game.
Their starting running back, who I'm blanking on.
Jonathan Taylor?
Yes, thank you. He was out. Didn't know he was going to be out. Mm-hmm. So that didn't help my cause. And no, Flacco didn't play bad. He played great again. But so they were my upset. So I went 1-1. I'm 5-5 overall. And Jeffrey, would you please remind us of your picks?
Let us know. I have it right here on this page right here. Well, let's look here. Commanders over the Browns. Well,
okay,
obviously that was my lock. Obviously one team was trending upwards, the other one downwards. And then for my upset, I had the Bucs over the Falcons. Obviously that was a rough loss for me on Thursday night. They went on overtime.
That was a surprising one to me. I was surprised to begin with that the Bucs were underdogs. And I guess that what do they know?
No, yeah, exactly.
So all right. So you went 1-1, so we're both sitting at 5-5.
Yep.
What do you got?
So for next week, for my lock, I got the Texans over the Pats.
Okay. That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm not sold on the Texans, but I'm even less trustworthy of the Patriots right now.
I couldn't believe the Pats let the Dolphins win today.
Yeah.
I could not believe that.
Yeah, that was an ugly game, to be honest. For my upset, I got the Broncos over the Chargers. I think the Broncos are riding high right now. Obviously I like the Chargers. I'm the biggest Justin Herbert fan, but I think the Broncos are just riding high right now, and their defense is definitely going to give the Chargers problems, I feel like, next week.
Okay.
Yep.
So fun fact, every week when we do this show, when we prepare for this show, we alternate on who gets to do their picks first. Mm-hmm. So this week it just happened to be Jeff's week to pick the games first.
That's right.
And he took both of my picks.
Yeah, that's right. I love those every time.
If I bomb this week, it is what it is. But those are literally the two games that I had circled that I was going to pick. So my backup plan, my lock is the Falcons over the Panthers. Which I feel pretty good about.
Well, that's not bad. Yeah.
And then my upset, again, I was a little surprised by this line. Giants are 4-point underdogs at home against the Bengals. Yeah. So I took the Giants over the Bengals.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you're riding high on the G-men right now.
Yeah, we'll see. Bengals, I mean, who knows? If they have an offensive performance like they did today, it'll be a different story.
Yeah, it'll cause some issues.
Giants actually have a defense, and Baltimore's, I don't think, made the trip to Cincinnati.
Right.
So,
now it's a divisional opponent. You face each other so many times. Yeah. You already know what defense is going to throw at you.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right.
Well, that'll do it for this week. Jets don't play next Sunday.
You're on bye, huh?
No, not on bye.
Oh, you're on Monday
night.
You're on Monday.
Which, side note, as much as I just gave them crap and just laid into them for the last 51 minutes of this show,
right?
Next week, if they beat the Bills on Monday Night Football, they'll technically be in first place via the tiebreaker. So as bad as it's been, I don't know why I do this. I don't know why I do this to myself.
You're giving yourself hope right now.
I don't know why I do this to myself. They're gonna lose. They're gonna lose.
Well, why don't you put that as your lock? Bills over the Jets.
Because I'm not that bad. I can't pick against my team. Are you kidding me? Good Lord.
Oh, this is great.
So I say all that to say, next Sunday I guess kind of get to sit back and relax.
You get to be me.
Exactly.
You get to be me this week.
Who would Saints play next week?
Just probably some schmuck team that we're gonna lose to anyway. Hold on. Hopefully. We play the Buccaneers.
Okay, that'll be a good game.
Yeah, Sunday.
That's an L.
Yeah, for the Bucs.
Hey. All right, let's stop. So that's the show. We will be back next week for you and have hopefully some good content.
Yeah, hopefully.
We'll see you later.
Laters.
Thanks for listening to What Did They Know podcast. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media outlets to see future episode details. And don't forget to send in any questions or topics that you want to see the guys discuss in their weekly episodes to come.